I thought we were doing it.
Oh, look, I have the great pleasure of talking to Luke Nicholas. Now, I know I always say it's a great pleasure, and it is to talk to these local New Zealand brewers. Luke Nicholas, though, is one out of the bag. So, mate, without sounding like a bit of a dick about it, I am a bit of a fanboy of yours, Luke, because you are truly one of the pioneers, mate, of New Zealand brewing. So thanks so much for your time.
No problem.
Hey, your story is a long one, but first of all, because one of the reasons I really love talking to you all the time is because you're very clear. You don't sort of fluff words. You don't have time for that bullshit, Luke. And you're always a very busy fella anyway. So give us the industry in a nutshell at the moment for you.
Oh, in a nutshell, right now, I don't know. It's really hard to read because everyone's been in their own bubble and everyone's probably dealing with the same stuff, like I don't know, production and what do you make and how do you package it. Like we'd been making beer over the lockdown, but and not putting it into keg, and then we got stuck with a lot of kegs, and then we've packaged some Armageddon into keg, and now all of a sudden it looks like we might run out of Armageddon kegs, but we're only going to be out for like a day or two, so it's not going to be a big problem. But it's all these things have flipped because I think that a lot of breweries didn't put beer into keg knowing that bars weren't going to be open, and then all of a sudden bars were open and where are the kegs? So it's really interesting times sort of going, well, you're second guessing what the future might hold, and it's not the same as the past, whereas it's like, well, these were the rules and this is how you play. Now it's like, well, you give it a go and half the time you're wrong and you've got to like scramble to get back onto your feet to go, I got to make more kegs as an example.
But I think you've absolutely nailed that. It's been super important to be nimble, but because things were so uncertain, we didn't know if we were going down the right path, with these ideas or things like that. So one of the things you did was, obviously, you canned the Armageddon, which is, we'll talk about Armageddon in a minute because that's an amazing story. And you did the online push. You were very nimble. All of a sudden it's online sales and, away you go. Did that work out for you okay?
Yeah, it worked out. It filled a big hole because so many stories to go with that. Like online sales were probably, they wouldn't even have been a couple of percent. And it was just one of those things that sat in the background, ticked along. We probably sold more t-shirts than we did beer online. Probably from having a background going back, I think my first online store selling beer in New Zealand was in 2000. And that's when I worked for a company called realbeer.com. And who was even selling beer online in 20 years ago? So it was pretty crazy. So I've been involved in, I guess, that technology, e-commerce thing for quite some time, and having our online store sort of there in the background ready to go. We had already done a lot of work, so it was just a matter of polishing that up and working out what was going to sell and what wasn't going to sell and how we were going to do it and who was going to pack it and who was going to ship it out, which ended up being all the staff and just coming into the warehouse and packing mixed six packs and stuff, which historically we'd hired people to do casually, and they'd just sort of work away in the background and producing stuff, which most of it was going out to supermarkets. But we all had to get in there and get our hands dirty and make it happen, and just fill online orders.
Was it a good idea to do that and sort of have the team come in? Did that bring the team a little bit closer together? Were you sort of able to not reimagine the business, but sort of have a moment to pull things back to reality or basics? What was that sort of attitude?
I think the thing was, it was a real team building experience because everyone was pretty much not doing their own job. We were all doing something new and we're all doing it together with the restrictions we had, because sort of, what was it, level 3, we could only have up to 5 people here, but we had 7 staff. So it was sort of juggling it through. And there was also the trying to get everyone to come in so that they had some I guess, relief from home because everyone had different circumstances, but by being able to come to work for a couple of days a week, it gave them some sanity. It broke up that that isolation from everyone, and I think that was really healthy. I'll be 30 minutes. Sorry.
hopefully about 25 from here, mate. Hey, so Luke, you've been around this industry.
I'm sitting in the middle of the where the fork hoist goes, so we might have to move it in a little bit, but we'll see how we go.
No worries, buddy. Hey, so you've been around this industry since the early 90s, and I think the story goes that there was a brewery which eventually turned into Steam Brewing, but you basically harassed them to let you in the building. Is that true?
Well, you could say harassed. I think I was very passionate. Some people may say obsessed. Harassment. I don't know if I'd go that far, but you could choose that word to describe my enthusiasm. So that was the cock and bull, and I guess the year I harassed them was 96, and early 97 they employed me as assistant brewer.
And it was pretty meteoric. I think you've been working in the brewery for about a year, maybe even 9 months.
Can you hear the fork hoist?
No, it's okay. I'm going good here.
Okay, cool. Are you sure?
Yeah, it's fun. It adds to the ambience, Luke.
I'll flip you around. Here we go. Got the fork hoist. See, we got special cases for the blue low carb beer. We got in the middle of the room there. We've got the new mixed cans pack, which has got a hazy in it. That'll be available in the supermarkets for a few weeks.
Oh, bloody hazies, Luke! Tell me about that. What do you think about this hazy carry on?
Well, it took me a long time. I don't know. I've decided I'm a really slow learner and someone really slow on the uptake on things. Hazies, I can totally understand now. It was what I was always looking for when I started my pale ale journey, and then discovered IPAs, and then discovered double IPAs. And I think the gap between double IPA and hazy was too long, and that's where I had my disconnect. But the hazy IPA is the next level from a double IPA because it has that real intense resininess. But I think my barrier to that was I really enjoy how a beer is presented. I like it to look crystal clear and beautiful and a lovely white head, whereas a hazy can just look so turbid and disgusting, and sometimes not even a wonderful orange color. It can be like brown or milky, and it's just like to me that doesn't work for me. It just looks bad. But once I get the taste for it, it's just like I can totally see why people are digging it. But for me, it's like, how is anyone ever going to try and get that hop hit that's going to be bigger than that, other than eating like just straight hop pellets? Because I don't know how you can go any further than that. So for me, it's like I get it now, and I'm having fun making them with all sorts of different hop varieties. But it's just like, where do you go to? Where do you go beyond that? Because it's got a lot of hops in it, which I love hops, but at the same time, I like my beer to look presentable and something that you'd like to drink, rather than, I don't know how to describe the murkiness of some of these beers.
I totally understand, Luke. There's nothing like seeing, a glass of Armageddon, for example. It sits in the glass. It's almost glows. It's alive, and there's nothing.
Sometimes when I see it now, it's just like, it doesn't even look real. It's just so brilliant and clear. And because when I go drinking at the pub, everyone's just drinking hazies these days, which, like I say, I totally get it. I love hops. That's taking hops to an extreme, maybe a dirty extreme. But I don't know. It's interesting, and it's awesome because it's a great way of experiencing hop intensity. But I think that there's also some consideration on you probably should have a little bit of balance there, a little bit of malt sweetness. Who even thought that I would say that? But just some malt to work with the hops, rather than just eating hop pellets, because that's essentially what you're doing. But the interesting thing is, whenever I think about hazies, it's it's the beer that, as a brewer, when you taste it out of the tank, that's essentially what you're drinking. You're tasting it through fermentation and through your dry hop and everything. And it's the beer that you'd never give to the public because it's not finished. It was never the beer that was finished. And it was like, well, you wanted to present the beer the best way possible. But so I'd been denying people the hazy experience for 20 plus years. And it was like, this is crazy. People wanted to pay for this. So that's great that everyone gets to experience beer all the way through.
So we're talking with Luke Nicholas of Epic Beer, one of the pioneers of the New Zealand brewing industry, and probably one of the most awarded brewers in the country. I mean, you've won Supreme Champion 3 times, I think it is, Luke.
I can remember twice.
Oh, that three-peat, mate, it always catch you out.
The three-peat? I think the interesting thing is if I look back over time and I look at like sort of the beer that first won was Monk's Habit winning a Supreme Champion, and then that won so many trophies every year, and then there was Epic Pale Ale which won Supreme Champion, and then it won trophies, and then after that then there was Armageddon, and that just had the string of incredible wins and trophies, and then sort of overlapping on that, Epic Thunder. So I've essentially kind of made a series of beers over 20 plus years that were all very hop forward, that range between sort of 6 and 7% alcohol, that have done extremely well at Beer Awards.
And
which is
Armageddon particularly, mate, that has to be one of the most awarded beers in the world, probably. And it's like, yes, New Zealand's most awarded IPA. Wouldn't it also be...
It must be true. It must be true.
It's written right on there. I saw it. So is Armageddon true to the day you first made it?
No. When we had in the early years, I think it was nearly 5 years before we could make it permanent because there were hop shortages. It was actually made because of the hop shortage back in 2008. And at that time, I'd been told that the contract wasn't going to be delivered, which pretty much every craft brewery was told, and we weren't going to get our hops. So I made a decision based on a book I'd read that summer about you should always do the opposite of what you think, and you'll get the result that you never expected, which kind of makes sense. And I was in a position where it's like, I've only got enough hops for the next 6 to 8 weeks, which I was making pale ale and I think Mayhem at the time and the lager. And I went, I'm going to make one last beer and I'm going to use all the hops that I've got left because that's the wrong thing to do, or the opposite of what I think I should do, where I, like most people would go, you should save them and spread them out and do whatever. I thought, no, I'm going to use them all up and see what happens because I don't know what the future holds. And the beer had only been in the tank for 3 weeks and I got a call saying, hey, we're going to let you have your hop contract. It was like, oh, great, I'm good for another 12 months. So I'd made this decision, which was totally wrong, but it ended up being probably one of the best decisions I ever made when it came to beer, because I'd used all these hops, which I'd never use because that doesn't make any sense. And then the following year, we packaged it and I think we were able to make it for 3 months. And then the year after was like 4 months, and then 5, and then 7, and then 9. And then I think, like I said, it was like 5 years before we could make it all year round. And I think through that shortage and the fact that it was just so hoppy and extreme for the New Zealand marketplace, it just really made a name for itself, which I don't think you can do these days because there's just so many beers. They just come out so often that there's some amazing beers that come out once and they might only be around for 2 or 3 weeks and then they're gone. It's like, that is not only a New Zealand classic, it's a world classic. It's one of the best beers I've had. And then all of a sudden it's gone and it's never made again, which freaks me out. And it's probably the most frustrating, and I don't want to say disappointing, it's the most frustrating part of the current beer culture, that there's these gems that are being made and then being lost to history forever. Ramble on forever.
No, I totally get it. It's one of the things that Lawrence and I sort of took into account when we were coming up with the concept for the beer spot is that, you know, you'd have your heart, you'd find this beer, you'd go back a couple of 3 times during the week to give it a go, then all of a sudden it would be gone. So we wanted to offer the option to, you know, take away in bottles, and you know, you can sort of sell a beer for 3 to 6 months, you know, it'll still be pretty good, and sort of have a lineup of those beers that are no longer around, you know. That's often a bit of fun.
Yeah.
The thing I want to talk to you about, Luke, is you come across as quite a brash guy. You know, you've got an opinion. Usually it's a very valid one, but you're a surprisingly spiritual person, you know. And I think you've kind of alluded to that just a little way back, where, you know, I read this book. It said, do something you wouldn't normally do, or do the wrong thing, and it'll turn out okay. So where is this this journey for spiritualism come from? What's the angle there?
Geez, I don't know. You should have like primed me on that question before now, so I could give it some thought. Yeah, I don't know. Can you press pause so I can have a chance to think about that?
No, just answer it later.
No, just go for it. Yeah, I don't know. Just experiences in life, and you do something for a long time and it's just not working out, and then you'd go, well, I'm not getting the results I want, so I need to change the way I am or what I'm doing, and go and explore something new. I don't even know if that explains it. I don't know. Let me think about it. Next time we have a beer together, I'll explain it to you.
Yeah, mate, I like that, because I think it's a very human facet, and in this day and age where we can all get wrapped up with what we're doing, you know, look at us standing behind our brands, mate. Look at that, you know. We're so engaged in these things, and I want to talk about a little bit about that.
Forwards.
I want to talk about this. People think that when you're a business owner and, you know, you're crushing it, you know, it's just incredible, and you're loaded, and you probably got 12 houses and 8 cars, and, you know, a holiday home in the south of France or some stuff like that. And
really, you've got all that? Hey, well, I'm opening beer spot too then.
Mate, it's all rumor and conjecture. Exactly. The point is, when you bought the Epic brand, was it 97? You did?
No. So Epic was created when I was working for the Cock and Bull. I was the general manager, head brewer of Steam Brewing Company, which was the brewing arm for the Cock and Bull pubs. And when we moved into Auckland Breweries, which was 4 times bigger batch size, which is actually a significantly larger number of liters bigger. It's not like 4 times bigger that you can make. It's like factors of 4. So when I took over that role, it was, well, don't run out of beer. Well, that's not going to be a problem because we've got so much capacity. Win awards. Well, that seemed to be pretty easy because I was already doing that. But be profitable was like, are you serious? There's so much capacity in here, and there's a packaging line which we don't even make packaged beer. We were contract brewing stuff with the Loaded Hog and some soft drink at the time. And so I proposed the idea of, why don't we make a package brand, because that's something I'd always wanted to do. I had a dream of doing that. I said, well, let's sort of create a brand. The brand basically became Epic. After about a year, it's probably nearly 18, it was just over a year, the guys from the Cock and Bull said, hey, we just want to invest in opening more pubs, and we don't want to invest in a package brand because we're good at opening pubs and we don't understand how to sell packaged beer. And I said, well, how about I buy it off you? So I basically gave them the money that they'd invested into Epic. And I went off on my own. I had found an investor who could bankroll me into buying the brand. And that was in 2007. And 2015, I think it was, I bought him out. So I borrowed a lot of money to buy him out because we wanted to go down different paths. He wanted to make a big trade sale and sell it to a big brewery. And I just got a lot of satisfaction out of creating beer and doing the beer thing, and didn't have crazy dreams of being the biggest brewery in the world. So I was like, well, I get a lot of satisfaction, so I'm going to buy my dream off this guy that had half of my dream. And here we are today, and doing what I love. And it's not about being the biggest, it's just being the best at what I can be.
Those, I guess the point I'm making is that everyone sees the outcomes, the outside, the approach and stuff. But mate, you were loading kegs of your beer into the old Toyota,
Corolla. Yeah.
because that's how you Corolla, and but you were peddling it, mate. You were doing everything.
Yeah.
And
like, I don't know if you were watching what was happening over the lockdown. I was still doing the same. Like, when our courier company wouldn't turn up, I was loading it in the back of the car and was taking it around to the depot over, like, this thing was like for nearly a week and a half. And like, I loaded way too much into that car. Or the lease company.
So look, buddy, you're our first ever brew buddy at the beer spot in Panmure. So thank you so much for that. I was out there last weekend. We had a soft launch Friday, open to the public Saturday, and of course Sunday for the long weekend. And we're open 7 days a week now. But it was really neat to go in there on Saturday. People were there, and it felt like it had been there for ages. It was such a good feeling, And I think that's just sort of part of brand momentum, which Epic has plenty of these days. So we've got 6 beers on at the beer spot in Panmure, 71 Jellicoe Road. Where
Do you still have any stout on? That Epic stout? Do you have any Epic stout on there?
Yes, we do.
Oh, very good. We only made 8 kegs of that.
Holy
and
cow.
Pamure's got 2 kegs of that. So you've got like 25% of the Epic stout in keg.
That's what I'm talking about.
You just got to watch out for Marie, because Marie's going to drink it all.
Well, jeepers, I had to fight Andrew Childs off the tap the other day. He popped in for a minute, and he was really enjoying the stout. So I want to talk about the lager, because a lot of brewers are saying that that's the next trend after the hazies. But you've been whacking out the lager for ages.
Yeah, the lager has been the sleeper for forever. So basically, my vision when I started Epic was Epic Pale Ale was going to be our light beer, and sort of everything was going to grow from there. IPA, double IPA, blah, 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 blah. But back in 2005, when I launched Epic Pale Ale, it was so extreme. It was just so far out there that people didn't get it. Like, I'd be standing in supermarkets doing tastings and stuff, and people would smell and go, "This smells like wine." People would taste it like this is more like wine than it is like beer. It had so much flavor that people were freaking out. So after about 18 months, once again, slow learner, took me 18 months to go, look, I'll make a lager. But the lager that we made, which is essentially the same recipe, I have tweaked the hops, which I'll talk about shortly. When I launched it 18 months after the pale ale, people just loved it. The first batch I put in green bottles, like, people would taste the pale ale first, and then they go, "I don't like that." And then they just pick up a 6-pack of green bottled lager, and it's like, "But you haven't even tasted it." They didn't care. It was just not as flavorful as the pale ale, which they couldn't drink at the time. So the lager's always been dry hopped, which is quite interesting. I was talking to someone about it, actually, I think this morning, about how for years it would, when you'd enter a competition, you'd make a note going, you can put brewers' notes, and for the judges, it's like, well, this beer fits into whatever lager style I entered it at the time. And then I go, well, it's dry hop. So you'll notice that on the aroma, there's a lot more hop character, and the upfront flavor is going to have a lot more hop flavor, and it's using American hops. So it's quite different from a traditional sort of German or Czech Pils or lager style, which I was entering it into and being judged against. So it would stand out like an IPA next to all these other lagers. And that was back in 2005. So by the time we got to about 2015, for the first few years, it won bronze, and then it just won silver. And it actually not 15, probably like 17. And then it just started winning golds. And it was about the time I changed the hops, and I added American hops like Laurel and Palisades and Santiam. So it's like really, really unique hop profile for a lager / Pilsner, which I know you could argue it being both ways. And now it wins gold every time we enter it in the Beer Awards, which is crazy. It's like, well, when did it change? And for all the years before it won gold, the notes were has too much hop character for style. And now, even though it wins gold, it's like really well made beer could possibly use more hop character. It's like it's essentially the same recipe. I changed a few hops in it a few years back, which changed the flavor profile, but the hop intensity is the same. But over time, I guess the judges and the expectations of what a lager can be has changed. So once we made a beer that was so hoppy that people thought, or a lager that was so hoppy that people thought it was nearly an IPA, but now they're going, well, it could be more hoppy. And it's pretty much the same recipe because it sells well. It was always the beer that was first on the chopping block to go. It's like, right, this beer isn't selling, and I'd look at it every year just going, it just keeps growing every year. I never officially launched it. It was always there in the background for the people that just go, your beers have too much flavor. I'm freaking out. Have you got anything else? Like, oh yeah, by the way, we've got a lager. And they go, thanks very much. It's much more approachable, and now I can enjoy that before I sort of, I guess, mature into much bigger flavors and more bitterness and more aroma. So it's been, it's been that beer. And what you're saying about the lager is going to be the next thing. I've been waiting for so long. Like we came out with an IPL, I believe it was the first IPL, which we called Larger, which was probably our most. Are you still there?
Yes, we are, mate. Just dropped you a
Yep.
little bit.
Yep. So the Larger was, I thought that was funny. It was a 8.5% IPL, and but people would look at it and go, "I've already tried your lager." And it's like, but lager doesn't have an R in it. And like we had a number of occasions where stores were seen stocking lager or the Larger, there I go, at $5.99. It's like, you pay more for that at cost than you're actually selling it for. They go, but it's just the lager. So even retailers didn't get the fact that it was different. And there was also blue, but the blue was different on the label. And it confused people. The flavor was way more intense and it was a lot richer. So I thought that New Zealand might go down that path of India Pale Lagers, but it never really took off. I don't know if people have had enough of IPAs or hazy IPAs yet to sort of have a blowout on their palate and need to circle back to something a bit more refreshing, like that obviously you're hearing about, and I've seen the trends in the States where these more, a lot of craft breweries are now offering a really well-made crafted lager, which offers more than your mainstream lager, but it's just not brutal on the aroma and the flavor and the hops and the bitterness. So sometimes you just need a break, and that's why we made our stout, which is, it's a nice wedge in between drinking a lot of IPAs, some nice malt sweetness and some roastiness, which gives your palate a break between IPAs, and the lager is really good too. It has its time.
You've definitely put the stake in the ground around big, hoppy, resinous beers. I mean, it's fair to say you're the king of IPAs. That gets bandied around a lot, Luke, and I don't think that's the platitudes. I think that's an honest, title for Luke Nicholas of Epic. But you're like really involved in your hop selection. Like you travel annually, don't you, up to the Yakima Valley and do your hop selection process. And you used to have to do that, schedule that by sort of 5 years ahead, almost like hop futures, if you like. Is that still the case for you, or are they much more available now, or how does that work?
Like any agricultural crop, there's cycles. And I think that I've been lucky because, with Epic, and prior to Epic, actually I started importing hops in New Zealand back in, I think the first year was 1998. And brought in just small volumes of hops for other craft breweries, including the Cock and Bull / Steam Brewing Company. Brought in some Cascade and other bits and pieces. But over time, I've seen the cycle, because when Epic started with Epic Pale Ale, which it is still today, 100% Cascade hops, we could land Cascade hops in the chiller in the brewery for $15 New Zealand a kilo. At the time, New Zealand grown Cascade was $35. So it was this ridiculously cheap price. and why would you use anything else? Because I wanted a certain character. It couldn't be grown in New Zealand anyway. That's a totally different story. But yeah, over time, I've got to know the growers. I've got to know their families. I got to know their farms. I actually know where a lot of the time the hops that I select, which I've selected a number of years blind, actually come from. I can tell on the side of a valley in the Yakima Valley, or even up in Moxie, where it's these are where the best cascades or the best centennials come from. And I now have this intimate relationship with the hops that go into my beer and the people that grow it and their families, and I have dinner with them, and it's I don't know, it's that, I guess, nearly spiritual, that connection to where the ingredients come from to make really great beer.
Totally. And you know, Luke, vintners call it terroir. I think probably hop growers do as well.
Oh, totally. It's exactly the same.
And that's super important. You know, one of our jobs at the Beer Spot is to eventually get our independent brewing industry as recognized and appreciated as our wine industry is, because a lot of the nature of those two seemingly diversified industries are very much the same. And you know, terroir for hops is one of those things. And we're seeing a bit of change around hop growing in New Zealand. We've seen some independents you know, start growing some noble hop varietals. And of course, New Zealand hop has developed strains over the past 40 years that are now very unique to New Zealand. But there's this, and I kind of feel like it's a myth, and I'm happy to be corrected here, but you know, a lot of people say Nelson Motueka is the hop growing region in New Zealand. And if anyone tries to grow hops anywhere else in the country, you're wasting your time. What's your sort of view on that yourself?
Really? You want to go down that path?
Well, just briefly, because I've kept you half an hour already.
Briefly. Yeah, there are opportunities. The one thing that people forget a lot when it comes to growing hops, and yeah, they can grow in a whole bunch of other places in New Zealand, is the capital investment. It's like putting up poles and wires is pretty easy for hops to grow on, but it's the whole process after harvest and what that means. It's the kilns and the drying, and then the baling, and then palletizing, which most of the hops go into, which it just doesn't make sense to pop up little places all around the country. And that's why I guess Nelson, Motueka area makes the most sense, because that's where the concentration of hops are. It costs a lot of money to set up all that processing equipment, especially when you're only using it for 4 weeks of the year. It's you can't get any other return on it other than that time of the year, which it's a really tough investment, because it's going to take you a lot of years. They talk about 10 years before you start to get some sort of return on that. And if you go starting to pop things up in the Hawke's Bay or Bay of Plenty or Central Otago, it's like, and you're there by yourself, you've got no real economies of scale, because there's in that Nelson region, there's a lot of people that share equipment, just because they're not big enough to justify a palletizing machine or whatever. There's equipment that's shared, because it just doesn't make sense to ship it across the country. It's everything's there locally, so, and the climate there is ideal, so it just makes sense. And there's so much land there. Like I think we're up to 1,200 acres now of hops grown in New Zealand. Well, that's about the same size as an average farm in the US. So, and I've been to farms that are twice that, and I think the biggest farm in the US is 9,000 acres. So, and that's just one farm. So the New Zealand is really, really small, and the cost to set up to grow hops and process hops is really, really high. So it's yeah, I don't know. What was your question about growing hops other places? I just think it's yes, they would grow other places, but the economics of it probably don't make sense.
So let's just go through a couple of other beers that we have on at Panmure. The Birthday Ultra Pale Ale. Why did you go Ultra?
Well, I went Ultra because it was kind of hey, judges at Beer Awards, I know what you actually want in a pale ale, because my pale ale recently was told that it's too dark for style, it doesn't have enough hop character, and you should consider entering it in some other class. And I'm like, so if I go back 14 years, Epic Pale Ale won Supreme Champion Beer of New Zealand, and then for a number of years after that, won Best in Class trophy for Pale Ale. The beer has essentially not changed in that whole time, and it's now not worthy of a medal because it's out of style. It's like, I don't even know what to call it. I call it Pale Ale on the label. 15 years ago, it was the best beer in New Zealand. Between not being within style and the best beer in New Zealand, it hasn't changed, and now it's not even a Pale Ale anymore. So I would like to know what a Pale Ale is. So I thought, well, I looked at Pale Ales and where the trends were and what beers were actually winning in the style. And it seems as though Pale Ale has sort of trended very quickly towards looking like a Pilsner or a lager, very light in color. So that's what I use. I use Pilsner malt. And how do I get it even lighter? There's a small amount of adjunct in there, which lightens the body and lightens the color. And I can't even remember what the hops are now. And yeah, no, I just wanted to make, if I was going to enter a beer in the New Zealand Beer Awards as a Pale Ale, what would it look like? And that's what that was.
Let's talk about awards for a while. You've won plenty of them, and you're quite a renowned international beer judge. You get called to competitions across the globe and things to offer your expertise around these beers. So the question is sort of a double-barreled one, you know. Is it satisfying still to win awards? And secondly, having known the process to judge like that, does it grind your gears? Is it something you still want to do, or?
Well, I guess retired from judging, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. It's I actually find it really intense. It's actually really emotional. It's like sitting down and doing 2 8-hour exams, and it's really hard because you not only do you have to smell and taste the beer and go, hey, this beer's either good or bad, you actually have to think about it, articulate it, write those notes down, because you want to give feedback to the brewers that have entered. They've paid good money to have their beer critiqued and looked at and judged. And not only do you have to comment on that, it's also nice to be able to give a suggestion on this may be some off characters and this is where it may be coming from. So it's being able to give that feedback. So you're sitting there tasting a beer, and then you have to use your brain. It's not just like, hey, we're just drinking a whole bunch of beers and this is a good one. It's like you really have to engage and think about it. So it's mentally exhausting going through that process. And then you get to the end, and it's like the part I love about judging is the camaraderie with the other judges, because they're all brewers. A lot of times they're international brewers. So you've got this really great community of beer judges, and that's the thing I miss the most from not judging anymore. But it came at the cost of like, well, I get to the end of it and I'd nearly be depressed, because it's like, well, I've actually drunk a lot of really bad beers and I've drunk a few good ones, and I've had a good time talking to people, but I'm mentally exhausted, emotionally exhausted. And where's the satisfaction out of it? It's like the only satisfaction is hanging out with these people, which I can actually do at the pub. So I can take the hard part out and I can meet them at the pub and not have to do the hard part. But then on the flip side, it's like, well, I really enjoy being able to give back to the community and going, hey, well, I've got some level of expertise which I can offer with judging and stuff. But it's at the same time, there's also, I've got to run a business too. So there's that weighing the time up for judging, which is a nice to do. And then there's running your business. There were a lot of things. And I just got to a point where it wasn't working for me. I'd just rather meet up with the judges after they've judged and have a beer with them.
Nice. Yeah.
Did I answer the question?
Yeah, no, that's great, mate. I think also maybe doing that acts like a bit of a sell for them after that emotional, hardworking process. You know, it's probably quite a good thing to do. Hey, Luke, yeah. I'm just aware that I've kept you a little bit longer than I'm supposed to. So I really appreciate your time, mate. The other beers we have on at Panmure are the Thunder APA, which is just an absolute banger. Armageddon, of course, which is just, you really want to take an Uber if you're going to have a session on that one. And the stout you were talking about, which we have 25% of. So we've got a couple of kegs at Panmure that probably won't last long now that people have seen this.
Yeah. Buddy, I'll drink it on tap, because we don't have a keg here at the tap room, so I've got to go there.
So tell us just quickly before we go about the tap room. Where is it? When's it open? And how's that going for you so far?
Tap room is so basically we've got this warehouse, right? And we do stuff in it like we're doing at the moment, where it's like packing things out and storing a bunch of stuff in the racking, which I know it's just easier to have here. We've got like offices and a wall of gin and whatever. And we've been here 3 years now. And for a couple of years, we've got a big table that we sit out and drink a few beers on a Friday. And just random people are coming every week, just walking down the drive going, hey, is this a tap room? It's like, no, this is like our office warehouse space and there's nothing here. And they go, oh, can we buy some beer? It's like, no, you can't because we haven't got a license. And they go, oh, okay. And it's lovely and everyone's having a good time. So why don't you join us? We'll shout you a couple of beers. And this, like I say, it went on for a couple of years. And then it got to the point where it's like, well, people want to come here and have an experience with us. So why not open something up? So about 6 months ago, we started applying for special licenses. We're open on a Friday and a Saturday, and people can come in and taste the beer that we've got, which is probably it is the most extensive selection of Epic, and that was another reason that we opened it, was because a lot of people go, well, where do I go and get a selection of Epic beers on tap or in bottle? And I go, well, I could tell you yesterday because we sent out these kegs to this particular bar, but sometimes a keg only lasts a day. And by the time someone gets there, it's like, well, that beer's sold out and then the next beer's on. So once again, it's going back to that culture of there's something new on all the time, which is exciting. But as, I guess, a producer of beer that I want to tell someone where to go and get it, it's like, well, I can't guarantee it's going to be there because we don't buy taps. So if someone has a permanent tap on, that's their choice. Most of probably 80 or 90% of the taps our beer's on is it's a guest tap, so it will rotate through. I guess an interesting experience I had was at a particular bar that they had Hop Zombie on, and I knew it went on at lunchtime because I went, right, I'm going to go down there at 5 o'clock. I got there at 5:30. Said, oh, I'm here for the Hop Zombie because I know it's brand new. I'm pretty excited to try it on tap. I go, well, where is it? They said, it's sold out. You know, what do you mean? You only got it this morning? I know you put it on at lunchtime because that's when you open. They said, well, it's sold out between lunchtime and now. I'm going, what? It's only on, what? It's not even on for 5 hours? I said, did you get 2 kegs? Oh, no. We've got other beers that we've got to put on. They said, well, once this tap comes free again, we'll get another keg off you. I'm like, great. Well, the beer that they put on held that tap up for 4 weeks.
Oh.
Because no one wanted to drink it. So anyway, that's a different story about having choice. But if the choice is no one wants to drink that, then that's not a very good choice. So we were finding these things where we want people to go and experience our beer. Where did we send them? And so that was another reason to open the tap room. It's like, well, we've got these beers on tap and we've got everything else available in the fridge. So if you want to try everything, then this is the place to come. So, and it's just a couple of days a week. It's only 4 hours on a Friday and 4 hours on a Saturday. It means that I can be.
Is it, Luke?
It's an Onehunga, 230B Nielsen Street, Onehunga in Auckland. So there's a map on the website, epicbeer.com. And yeah, I'm here and Wendy's here all the time, so people can come and have a yarn with us, and we can tell them whatever stories they want to hear, and we'll drink beer with them, and hopefully they have a good time. And they can buy a T-shirt too.
Oh yeah, go the T-shirt. Hey Luke, thanks so much, mate. I've kept you way longer than I originally planned, but it's just hard not to, mate. It's always great having a chat with you. I really appreciate your time. And,
hey, no worries.
Do you have some plans to get to Panmure during the month?
Oh, totally. I'm planning on going next week.
Nice. Please let me know, buddy. I'd love to catch up with you.
Like my own stout. I'm only drinking it out of a can.
Nice. And you can answer that question about spirituality.
Oh, you're going to be there. What day are you going to be in Panmure?
I don't know. You let me know, buddy. I'll make it.
Cool. I'll meet you there.
That's awesome, Luke. Thanks so much. Luke Nicholas of Epic Beer, our brew buddy of the month at the Beer Spot Panmure, 71 Jellicoe Road. Thanks very much, Luke.